kind of set the tone for the conversation because we were hoping to hear otherwise. Ogwumike said the 3-hour meeting was instead spent both sides explaining the thinking behind their recent proposals. One of the main priorities, according to one source familiar with the negotiation, was to allow players and owners to connect and ask questions of each other. Likable individuals in the league we can all put in one room that actually can't stand the most popular talent they have in the entire league. I've said this, they've got the worst people representing them in this. It needs to be Caitlin Clark, and we all know it, right? Now, I think this is interesting.
That clip you just heard, that's not some random internet troll. That's a legitimate sports commentator breaking down what just happened in New York City. And honestly, after you hear what went down in that meeting room, you're going to understand exactly why people are saying things like this out loud. The WNBA Players Union just walked out of what was supposed to be the most important negotiation meeting in league history. 3 hours. 3 full hours locked in a room with team owners in Manhattan. And when the doors finally opened, both sides left with absolutely nothing to show for it. No progress, no compromise, no new proposals, just frustration, finger-pointing, and a ticking clock that's getting louder by the day. Here's what makes this absolutely wild. We're less than 100 days away from the start of next season, Caitlin Clark's second season. The season that's supposed to build on all the incredible momentum from last year's record-breaking rookie campaign. And right now, there's a very real possibility that season might not happen at all. If you believe the story behind the story matters, if you think someone needs to connect the dots on what's really happening here, smash that like button right now. It tells us we're on the right track with this coverage. So let's back up and understand exactly what went wrong in that room. The meeting was set up as a face-to-face negotiation, the kind of high-stakes, make-or-break moment where you bring your best people, your smartest advisors, and you hammer out a deal that works for everyone. That's negotiation 101. Show up prepared, bring solutions, and work toward common ground. The owners showed up, all of them. They walked into that room ready to talk. But here's the kicker that has everyone scratching their heads. According to Union President Nneka Ogwumike's own statement to Front Office Sports, the owners volunteered right at the start of the meeting that they didn't have a new proposal prepared. They essentially said, "We're here to listen and explain our thinking, but we're not bringing anything new to the table today." Now you might think that sounds bad for the owners. And sure, walking into a negotiation without a counteroffer isn't exactly a power move. But here's what you need to understand. The owners had already put an offer on the table, a massive offer, life-changing money, maximum salaries starting at $1.3 million in year one and scaling up to nearly $2 million by the end of the deal. That's an 8 to 9 times increase from current max salaries. So when the owners showed up and said they weren't bringing new numbers, what they were really saying was, "This is our offer. Take it or leave it." They came to that meeting to explain their position and hear what the players had to say. That's a negotiating tactic. It's hardball, but it's not unreasonable when you've already quadrupled the salary structure. But here's where things get absolutely bizarre. Let's look at who the union brought to represent the players in this supposedly critical business negotiation. You had legitimate stars there. Brianna Stewart showed up. Nneka Ogwumike was there. Brianna Turner attended. These are smart, accomplished athletes with real skin in the game. But then you look at the guest list for people who joined the call remotely, and this is where you start wondering what strategy the union is actually following. Stacey Abrams joined the meeting. Yes, that's Stacey Abrams. The politician from Georgia who's known primarily for progressive activism and voter rights advocacy. Not sports labor negotiations, not salary cap economics, not collective bargaining agreements, political activism. And she wasn't the only outside voice. AFL-CIO President Liz Shuler also joined the call to express solidarity with the players' union. Now think about what message that sends when you're sitting across the table from owners who are offering to make you significantly wealthier. You're not bringing sports economists. You're not bringing financial analysts who understand basketball business models. You're bringing political figures and...
It's the most unlikable league ever. AFL-CIO President Liz Shuler were also on the call and ended with support of the WNBA PA. So Stacey Abrams was in on the call for the players. Do you guys want to grow your sport at all? It's like, can we get the most extreme individuals, most radical individuals in existence involved? You might as well just put Bad Bunny in there. Was Bad Bunny in on the call? Question mark. Reports, the league has proposed a significantly higher salary structure with a maximum compensation potentially approaching $1.3 million to nearly $2 million over the life of the deal. They're making a point to only say $1.3 million because they're trying to empower the players. Well, it's just $1.3 million. Well, it's nearly $2 million by the end of the deal.
Many of you have been saying this for weeks, and you were right. This isn't being treated like a business negotiation anymore. It's being treated like a political movement. And that's a massive problem when you're trying to work out the financial details of running a professional sports league. But wait, it gets worse. The two biggest names who were supposed to be there in person, Kelsey, Plum, and Napheesa, Collier, didn't even show up to the room. They dialed in via Zoom. Let that sink in for a second. This is supposedly the most consequential meeting in WNBA history. The moment where the future of the league gets decided, and your star representatives couldn't be bothered to actually be there physically. The optics are absolutely catastrophic. When you're negotiating a deal that could change your life financially, you show up. You look people in the eye. You demonstrate that this matters enough to you to be in the room. Joining via Zoom while other people fight your battles sends a very specific message. And it's not a message that inspires confidence in your commitment to getting a deal done.
By the way, Kathy Engelbert was involved, as well as some others, and I already named some of these. All right, so earlier in the day, it was reported that there was strong debate occurring among members of the WNBPA 7-team executive. All right, talking about one group believes the time is now to stand firm in the pursuit of the revamped revenue model. The other is less inclined to pursue a strike. And you all can't get your PA team to show up on time. Unprofessional. Dumbest group of women to ever lead a negotiation, honestly. Whomever is advising or filing their head with images of grandeur should be fired. There's a winning and life-changing money on the table, and these dumbasses want to walk away from the table. Pure greed. Whoa! Smoking. Please tell me the WNBA PA didn't go there just to listen to offers.
Now here's what the union keeps saying publicly. They claim there's no division among the players. They insist everyone is united in demanding a complete overhaul of the revenue-sharing model. They want the WNBA to operate like the NBA, with players getting a significant percentage of league revenue rather than fixed salaries. That sounds great in principle. Equal pay for equal work, revenue sharing, all very progressive and fair-sounding. But here's the reality that's being filtered out of these public statements. The league isn't profitable yet. The NBA has been subsidizing the WNBA for decades, and while last season showed incredible growth, thanks largely to Caitlin Clark's impact, we're talking about building momentum, not banking profits. The owners are offering salaries based on what they believe the league can actually afford while continuing to invest in growth. They're not being cheap. They're being realistic about business fundamentals. But the union has backed itself into a corner where accepting anything less than NBA-style revenue sharing looks like capitulation. Reading between the lines of these reports, there's clearly tension brewing inside the union itself. You don't get detailed leaks about internal debates unless someone wants those debates to be public. According to reports, there's strong disagreement among members of the players' union's 7-person executive committee. One faction believes now is the time to stand firm and demand the revenue model they want, even if it means threatening a work stoppage. The other faction is far less enthusiastic about risking a strike. And that makes perfect sense when you think about the math. The stars in this league have options. They can play overseas. They have endorsement deals. They have financial cushions that can carry them through a missed season. But most players in the WNBA are not in that position. Most players are making base salaries and living paycheck to paycheck relative to their lifestyle and obligations. They need this season to happen. So you've got leadership bringing in political activists and talking about principles, while rank-and-file players are quietly looking at an offer that would double or triple their actual paychecks and thinking, maybe we should just take this deal and play basketball. That's not unity, that's a powder keg. And here's the element that makes this entire situation even more frustrating. The one player who has the most legitimate reason to be upset about compensation is staying completely silent, Caitlin Clark. The player who single-handedly changed the trajectory of this entire league. Her games drew record-breaking viewership that shattered every previous benchmark. Her jersey sales broke every sales record in the book. Her presence drove attendance across the league, even for away games in cities she was visiting for the first time. She's a rookie who made roughly $76,000 this season while generating tens of millions in revenue for the WNBA. If anyone has a legitimate grievance about compensation, it's her. But notice something crucial here. She's not the one demanding a strike. She's not the one bringing politicians to negotiation meetings. She's not the one holding the league hostage over ideology. She's just playing basketball and letting her game speak for itself. That's the difference between a business mindset and an activist mindset. And here's what I need you to understand about why that matters. The league's explosive growth is almost entirely attributable to Caitlin Clark. The casual fans who started watching last season, they came for her. The sponsors who are finally investing real money in the product, they're betting on her continued presence. The media coverage that elevated the WNBA to mainstream conversation, she drove that. If this negotiation falls apart and the season gets canceled, all of that momentum evaporates instantly. The casual fans won't wait around. The sponsors will redirect their marketing budgets. The media will move on to the next story. And when the league finally does come back, whenever that might be, they'll be starting from scratch trying to rebuild interest that took decades to finally achieve. Drop a comment right now and tell me what you think the union should do. Should they take this deal and secure generational wealth for players, or should they hold out for revenue sharing even if it means risking everything? Because I genuinely want to know where you stand on this. So let's talk about what actually happened in that 3-hour meeting, because the details reveal everything. According to Nneka Ogwumike's statement, the owners made it clear from the start they weren't bringing a new proposal. That set the tone for the entire conversation, she said. Both sides spent 3 hours explaining the thinking behind their recent proposals. Think about that phrasing for a moment, explaining the thinking behind their proposals. That's corporate speak for, we talked past each other for 180 minutes without making a single inch of progress. Nobody was negotiating. Nobody was compromising. Nobody was finding middle ground. They were just restating their positions over and over while the clock kept ticking. And here's the detail that makes this even more surreal. Roughly 40 players joined via Zoom to observe this disaster unfold in real time. Imagine being one of those 40 players, watching your union leadership fail to make progress, watching the owners refuse to budge, knowing your paycheck depends on this getting resolved in the next few months. How many of those 40 players were sitting there quietly thinking, just take the deal so we can play basketball? The pressure in that virtual room must have been absolutely suffocating, because here's what nobody wants to say out loud, but everyone is thinking. The rank-and-file players cannot afford a work stoppage. The stars might have overseas options and massive endorsement income to fall back on, but most players in the league are living paycheck to paycheck relative to their lifestyle and obligations. They need this season to happen to pay their mortgages, their car payments, their kids, school tuition. Connecting the dots reveals a troubling pattern. When you've got one faction of union leadership ready to strike over abstract revenue-sharing principles, and another faction terrified about missing actual paychecks, That's not unity. That's a disaster waiting to happen. And the fact that these internal divisions are leaking to the media tells you everything about how fractured this situation has become. The union keeps insisting publicly that everyone is on the same page, but the reports of internal fracturing came from somewhere. Someone inside that organization wants the public to know there's disagreement. Someone wants pressure applied. Someone is trying to use media coverage to shift the negotiating position. That's not what happens when you have genuine unity and a coherent strategy. Let's filter out the noise and look at the cold economics of this situation. The owners are billionaires who can absorb a lost season as a tax write-off. It hurts their pride and damages the product they've invested in, but it doesn't threaten their financial survival. Most of the players cannot survive a year without income. They don't have that luxury. The owners know this. That's why they're playing such hardball. They know the players have way more to lose from a work stoppage than they do. It's a brutal calculation, but it's the cold reality of sports labor negotiations. And the longer this drags on without progress, the more leverage shifts toward the ownership side. Here's what makes this particularly frustrating for everyone watching from the outside. This entire crisis is completely avoidable. The owners have put a generous offer on the table. It's not perfect. It doesn't give players everything they're demanding, but it is incredibly generous given the league's actual financial situation. Maximum salaries approaching $2 million by the end of the deal. Massive increases in benefits and working conditions, real, tangible, life-changing money for every single player in the league. The logical path forward is obvious. Accept the deal. Play basketball. Continue growing the league with Caitlin Clark leading the charge. Build the audience. Increase revenue. Achieve actual profitability. And then negotiate for even more in the next collective bargaining agreement when you actually have leverage based on real numbers instead of projected potential. But that logical path requires the union to separate business reality from political ideology, and based on who they've brought to these negotiations, based on the activists they've invited to advise them, based on the public statements they keep making, it's not clear they're capable of making that separation. You were onto something when you noticed how differently Caitlin Clark is handling this compared to the union leadership. She's not making demands. She's not threatening strikes. She's not turning contract negotiations into social justice crusades. She's just focusing on basketball and trusting that her value will be recognized. That's how you build leverage in any negotiation. You prove your worth through results, not rhetoric. The next few weeks are absolutely critical for this league's future. Either the union accepts something close to the owner's current offer and we get Caitlin Clark's second season, or we're headed for a work stoppage that could set the league back decades. The smart money says this gets resolved because the economic pressure on players will eventually force union leadership to accept reality. But there's a terrifying possibility this goes sideways. If the leadership digs in and convinces enough players that this is about principle rather than pragmatism, we could actually see a strike. And if that happens, the damage would be catastrophic. You'd lose all the momentum from last season. You'd lose the casual fans who just started paying attention. You'd lose sponsors who are finally investing real money. All because the union couldn't accept an offer that would make every player significantly wealthier. The fan reaction to this entire mess perfectly reflects the disconnect. People who want to support women's basketball are watching this unfold and thinking, what on earth are you doing? They see players being offered life-changing money and acting like it's an insult. They see union leadership bringing political activists to business meetings instead of financial experts. They see stars joining via Zoom instead of showing up in person for the most important negotiation of their careers, and they're losing patience fast. If the WNBA Players Union forces a work stoppage over this, they will lose the public relations battle badly. Fans will side with the owners who offered to quadruple salaries. Media coverage will turn overwhelmingly negative, and the league's historic momentum will disappear into thin air. So here's where we stand. Less than 100 days until the season is supposed to start. Owners have made their final offer. Union is demanding changes the owners won't accept. There's no actual negotiation happening anymore, just position explaining. And the clock keeps ticking louder. If you want to see how this resolves and whether Caitlin Clark's second season actually happens, make sure you're subscribed and notifications are turned on. Because this situation is about to reach a breaking point, and you're not going to want to miss what happens next. We'll be tracking every development, every leaked report, every sign of which way this is heading. The WNBA just had its best season in history. Now we're watching in real time to see if amateur hour negotiating tactics destroy everything that was just built. Stay tuned.